I have a confession to make. So yesterday when I put the first one out, I had actually been working with ChatGPT to kind of outline what this video was going to be, and I did 2 takes with it, and I didn't like how it felt looking at bullet points and notes to share with you. And so I closed it, and what you saw was me just talking to you. And so my laptop is here in front of me, but it's got the crypto prices up. So there's no notes. I don't want to do that. I want it to be completely off the cuff and in the moment. Doesn't mean that I'm not going to think about, well, what do I want to talk about today? But I mean, if I'm talking about my life and my experiences, I know them so well, I don't need notes to tell stories. And so that's my confession. And what you got was the 3rd take, but it was without anything before me. And that's how it's going to go. But there's a challenge to that because I'm so used to showing visuals. And if I'm going to tell stories, especially about the early web, there's things I want to show you. So I'm going to paint pictures with my mind, I guess, but I want this to be easy enough that all I got to do is sit down and talk, and I don't have to worry about editing. I mean, I didn't even take yesterday's video and put it into an editor to render it. I took it direct from the phone and just uploaded it. And that's what I want to do. So thank you to those of you who have encouraged me to do this, and I encourage you to stick around. I don't know if this is going to be chronological or what's going to happen at all, but I do want to go way back today. Set the Wayback Machine for 1980, and I was 16 years old. For the previous 2 years, I had been working at the food court in Northbrook Court. I was slinging hamburgers and pizzas and submarine sandwiches. I had to go to my high school counselor to get a work permit when I was 14 years old, because you couldn't get a job until you were 16. But I got a work permit, and they hired me at the food court, and I was making, I think I started at $2.65 an hour, and I was really happy to do that. That was great, and I learned how to manage money somewhat when I was younger, and I saved up my money. Of course, me and my friends, we would go to the arcade. I mean, I remember when Pong came out, as do many of you. I remember when Space Invaders came out, when we made the transition from the pinball machines in the arcades to now bringing in video games and then home video game units and all that. But when I was 16 years old, I had saved up enough money to buy my first computer. And this was, I think, just before the Apple came out. I want to say 1980, or at least before I became aware of it. Tandy Radio Shack had the TRS-80. And this was just a black and white screen with, a keyboard and a cassette player. That was your storage device, your medium storage device. So there was I couldn't afford a hard drive. They were super expensive back then. And I couldn't even afford a floppy disk drive back then. So I took the cassette player that came with it. And, most boys around 16 are looking at reading magazines, but not the Radio Shack catalog. And boy, I lusted after this computer. I had to have one. There was something so cool about being able to use a computer. And I didn't know if I could program or not. I just knew that I wanted to use a computer. So I bought one. And I remember when I bought one, my mom said to me, "What are you going to do with a computer?" Little did she know that it would completely set the course for the rest of my life, because technology has just been the leading edge for me. And I remember in high school I took a computing course. I think I was either a sophomore or junior, and Joe Mercer, Mr. Mercer, who actually follows me here on, we're friends on Facebook, and hi Joe, so you guys can tag him if you want to. He was the teacher in that class. He was also a mathematics teacher. I think I might have had him for geometry or algebra, I don't know. Anyway, he taught computers. And back then, it was COBOL punch cards. We were learning Fortran. I hated it so much. And it wasn't until college that I attempted another stab at computing. Hated it. Wasn't a coder. I was a user. I just wanted to play with the toys. And so I played games on my computer because I loved video games. And these were very primitive. I remember playing the early, what's now Microsoft Flight Simulator. But back then it was created by a company called Sublogic, which Microsoft acquired, I think, after Flight Simulator 2. And it was just on this black and white screen. It was a 8x8 grid with some crooked lines along one side to indicate a mountain range, and then like that on flat on one of the grids to indicate the runway. That was it. You would take off within this little world and be flying. And there were text adventure games that I played where there weren't visuals of, going into a dungeon or a cave to explore. It was all text-based by a guy who became very popular with that. His name was Scott Adams. Not the same Scott Adams that did Dilbert. But I remember totally geeking out on the TRS-80, and I acquired a modem. It was a 300 baud modem. That is so slow. It's 300 bits per second, and it's so slow. But back then we didn't have internet. We had bulletin board systems. And what would happen is somebody would set up a piece of software on their computer with modem, and sometimes multiple modems, and you'd be able to dial into that phone number and access the software. And that software acted as the first online communities for the general public. So one of them might be dedicated to gaming, another one might be dedicated to travel, whatever. And there would be bulletin boards, chat rooms within each of these different systems, and you would log in, you would download pictures, you would download software for your computer, and it was what we would call early internet. So technically, I have been dialing in to the online world now. Let's see, do the math, carry the one. This is 2025 now, so for 45 years. Is that right? Yeah, 45 years I have been dialing into the online world. So the course was set for what would come next. And I've got to tell this story. My father was an architect his whole life. And I remember him having an associate that was a cabinet maker. He was doing cabinets. He was a contractor. And his cabinet maker associate wanted to know if I could help create a program on the TRS-80 for him to use on his computer that could basically track inventory and sales and invoice. And, I learned, I guess at a very early age, that if you don't know what you're doing, just say yes. Because you can figure it out. Well, I tried my hand in it, and I went to a friend of mine, excuse me. His name was Phil Goldberg. I think Phil's on Facebook as well. Phil was the smart kid. He understood code. And I went to him and I said, I need help with this. Can you help me to code this? And he really did. He did the heavy lifting on it. I think I got the credit for it, and I got paid. I don't even remember. It was so long ago. But I knew, I think even then, that I had no business coding. I just didn't have a mind for programming. System code was just, what? I mean, I understand logic, if this, then that, but there was something about coding that I was pretty much relegated to line 10, basic code. Line 10, print hello, line 20, go to 10. And I would just be delighted to see this endless loop of hello on my screen. I eventually did have enough money to buy a floppy disk drive and upgrade from the cassette player, because when you had the cassette player, it was just a standard Radio Shack cassette player. You'd put a cassette tape in it, and if you wanted to load a program, you would type load, and then you would push play. And then when it stopped receiving data, the program would be on the computer. And if you wanted to save data, you would push save, hit save on the computer, and then hit play and record, just like old cassette decks work. Eventually, I was able to upgrade, and I got the expansion interface for the computer, which allowed me to get more RAM. Because what I didn't tell you is that first computer, the first one I bought, the Model 1, had 4K of RAM. Not 4 gigs, not 4 megabytes, 4K of RAM. It would store 4,000 bytes. That was it. And so eventually I was able to upgrade to 250K. So, you know, we were really styling it there. But it really shows you just how far things have come in our lifetime, in my lifetime, as a teenager to now almost ready to take Social Security man. That seems really weird to me. We've gone from games that were just text-based to the most amazing graphics. And computers, when we first had the first personal computer, that was already in many cases as powerful as some of the old IBM mainframes that took up buildings or whole floors. And now, this device I'm talking to you right now, this phone, this powerful, extremely powerful computer, it blows away anything that we ever had before. And what's amazing to me is when you think about kids that are born today and for the first time have this device put into their hands, that this is the worst technology that they'll ever know. It's only going to get better in their lifetimes. So there's a little walk down memory lane for you. Tell me your first computer. Was it, were you along with me? Was it a TRS-80? Was it an Apple? Was it later edition of the Apple? Was it the Macintosh? Was it the Commodore 64? Which, by the way, they're bringing back a nostalgic version of the Commodore 64. Was it an Amiga? Atari? What was your first computer? TI-99-4? Was it one of those? Texas Instruments? I don't know. Like the video for me. See, no fancy graphics. There's a little subscribe thing just came up there. And then there's a little thumbs up over here. Click the thumbs up down there and leave a comment. This is how the YouTube algorithm works, I guess, is when you like it and you comment on it and then you share it with somebody else, it helps to do whatever magic YouTube does these days. I don't know. Okay, hope you enjoyed that. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great day. Bye.